meeting to order. First up on the agenda, I need approval of the agenda as presented. Be aware there's changes coming to your agenda.
So moved. Support.
We have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. We'll go on to item 3, public comment. Any public comment today?
Pressure?
No public comment. All right, move to item 4. Committee items. Item 4A, we need to review and approve the minutes of the March 11th, 2019 meeting.
So moved.
We have a meeting and motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. 2B or 4B, we have our appointments. The appointment will be for the Land Bank Authority, nonprofit corporation representative. We have one applicant. That would be Lindsay Knoll. Are there any more applicants from the floor? If not, I need a motion support for Lindsay Knoll to move forward.
So moved. Support.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. The second appointment is no application, real estate representative. We'll have to re-advertise for that. The third appointment here is a township supervisor. Current member is Pete Jancic. He has not reapplied. We have no applications, so we'll have to re-advertise for that position. Next up, we have 4C, Register of Deeds Semi-Annual Report. Welcome, Mona.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay. To those that I see a couple of new faces, don't know who I am. I'm Chief Deputy for Amanda in the Register of Deeds office. And I'm here to present our annual report. Has everyone got a chance to look at the attachments I sent? I can make this short and sweet. Last year we did well, but not as well as we had the couple of years before. We dropped in our recordings. We were still able to send over $1 million to the general fund. With those numbers dropping, though, I note, if you notice in the county transfer tax, which is a tax that seller buyer pays when the property is transferred based on a certain percentage, we did increase. Even though recordings were lower, we increased in our county transfer tax, which is good. As always, it's nice to see that we dropped in mortgage foreclosures again this year. We've had a steady drop for the last 10 years, which is good to see. And I also included at the end a breakdown of those mortgage foreclosures by township, so you could see your districts, how they're doing. But other than that, I think everything's pretty much in the report. Do you have any questions?
Your reports always are. New commissioners may not understand some of it unless you've read your agenda completely. Any questions on the report?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We move on to item 4D, facilities. Welcome, Rick.
I'll move it.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. You have in front of you a request for shingle work at 3 of our salt barns for the Jackson County Department of Transportation.
Any questions or discussion? I think this is paid for with state money.
Yes, it's a pass-through.
Okay. If there's no question. Okay, we have a motion from Rodney Waltz.
Support.
And a support from Corey. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the same. Thank you much. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Rick. Next, 4E, equalization. We have our report.
Good morning.
Welcome, ma'am.
We have three matters of business this morning. The first is the county equalization report that I'm submitting for acceptance and publication on the web. This is the first year that we've been able to actually get it to you by committee time due to the state requirements of when the equalization values need to get to us from the local townships. It isn't until April 3rd. So usually we're getting it to you before the larger meeting, but this year we were able to get you the full report for committee, which we're very grateful for. The second is the L4024, which is the certified equalized values that you're required to certify in equalization session in the month of April. And the third is the L4029. Since the millage reductions I've already calculated this year, we can go ahead and submit that L4029, which has to be certified by the full board as well. I wanted to just, not going to go through this entire report with you, but I wanted to just make you aware of a couple of things or bring a couple of things up to you. If you look in the report, you'll see that it's just assessed and taxable values analyzed in multiple ways. If you look at page 4, it gives you the clearest representation of the values this year, both equalized and taxable. Equalized values went up 6.15% this year overall countywide. 5.3 of that is a market adjustment. The other 1.15% represents new construction. There was also some loss, but that's the net new construction. If you look down at the taxable values, you'll see that we have a taxable value increase of 4.08%. 2.9 of that was market adjustment. If you remember, 2.4 is our CPI this year, which does result in a little bit of a millage reduction, and you'll see that on the 4029. If we go over that 2.4 CPI, that we're required to roll the millage back. 1.18% of that was in new construction and taxable. And I think, you know, if you look at these values, sometimes you get a little confused, especially with things when you see large negatives. In this page, you'll see a negative 46.96% in developmental assessed and 51.94. Developmental is a class of property that assessors move parcels into and out of depending on whether they're being actively marketed. If, you know, the definition of developmental property is that the value in exchange is higher than the value in use. So if you have, say, agricultural property that's on the corner of I-94 and another highway, and it's being farmed at this point, but you know that that area is ripe for development. That's the type of a property that will be moving kind of in and out of developmental property. It doesn't mean it's a true loss, it's just moving to another class of property. And if you look at, you'll see a 12% reduction in industrial real property. And I just wanted to explain that to you because it has to do with the old Kinder Morgan plant over on Chapin Street. The city, most of this happened in the city, and over at the Kinder Morgan plant, there was industrial real property and utility personal property that was taken out of those two classes and put into the industrial personal. So you'll see a negative 40% in industrial real. You'll see a negative 54% in utility personal. But then you see a 969% increase in industrial personal. So that's basically the shifting of those values to another class of property because of some tax tribunal cases that we've had. So the assessor and the city moved those values around, and I just wanted you to know that that isn't any kind of a real loss. It's just a move, a shift from class to class. Another interesting, something that you might find interesting is on page 5, we have home values, and these are arranged both by average value per unit and then by percent changed. So you'll see that in average value, the average home values in Columbia, Grass Lake, Waterloo, and Liberty are at the highest end. Parma, Blackman, Springport, and the city of Jackson have the lowest average single home value. But when you look at percentage of growth, you'll see that Pulaski, Springport, Liberty, and Concord have the highest percentage of growth. And then the more established, if you will, Waterloo, Norval, Summit, and Spring Arbor don't have as high a percentage of growth. So those are always kind of interesting to look at. Equalized and taxable values, the full analysis of equalized and taxable values by unit you'll find on pages 28 to 67. And the rest of it is basically a lot of analysis that we are requested and required to give to the state, to accountants, to schools, to bonding agencies that are constantly asking us for different breakdowns of these values. So the rest of it is kind of the information that we provide for them. Unless there's any other questions you have about that report, I would ask that you would accept it for publication on the website and request that you certify the L4024 and the L4029 to meet your statutory requirements and to refer those on to the full board.
Okay. Any questions? Discussion? Okay, we caught up here. My computer got updated. Okay, we need to accept the 2019 Equalized Report for publication. Move the other two items ahead to the full board. We need a motion and request.
Second.
We have a motion and request, or motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed the same. Passes unanimously. Thank you for your report. Good job, Ruth. We've been adjusting the agenda on the fly here. What does my committee members have for item F? Parks?
Parks, American One Event Center, Rockford Design Build Agreement
And
Amendment.
then we have M and N is our last two business items. Is that what? Okay. Okay, thank you. We'll take that as M and N.
Do them whatever order you want to.
Then I just didn't, okay. Okay, item 4F, Parks, the American One Event Center. Welcome, Jeff.
Welcome. Well, I gave a rather long presentation at study session, so I'm guessing you all don't want to hear me carry on again. So I would like to, what we're dealing with here is a GMP, Guaranteed Maximum Price Amendment to the original Rockford Design Build Agreement that this body approved in January of 2018. The original agreement set a construction budget of not to exceed $6 million as a placeholder. At that time, we hadn't designed a building. We had a blank sheet of paper. And part of what we were charging Rockford to work with us to do was to develop or design a building that was appropriate for Jackson. We also designed at that time based on those market conditions and based on, as I pointed out in the presentation, those federal and state level policies that were in place that affected material pricing. This amendment reestablishes, creates a change order and reestablishes that guaranteed maximum price. And there are a couple of exclusions to point out. One is soil conditions or geotech We're in and around that at the moment. That's typical. And then the other is if the owner, for some reason during construction, changes the scope of the project. But that would take your action, and I don't anticipate that happening. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
So my main concern, obviously, substantial increase request to $422,423. Where we're going to get those funds from?
The answer at study session that the county administrator gave, and is my understanding, is that we'll be taking those out of the 2019 capital reserve budget.
And I know I touched on it in the study session. I just want clear clarification that none of that will be the parks millage funds, correct?
No, that would come from the general fund reserves.
Okay. Second question is, I think Commissioner Bears brought up that there is a possibility that we could potentially reduce that cost by using more cost-efficient.
Yeah, this is a not to exceed any value engineering that occurs, which is common in most projects, and we are continuing every day. We're making assessments, quite frankly. Architects design, and then builders get on site and shake their head and say, why did they design it that way? And we're seeing some of that on the flip side of this, the Hoffman contract that you approved last month, where the specs called for a 4-inch water line and a heated pit for the backflow preventer. And Hoffman said, why would you do that? You only need a 2-inch line and you don't need it to be heated. It's seasonal. And we saved $25,000. So that's a change order that we'll be making for that project. And we've had similar types of things that we've done. So we anticipate that we have that opportunity and those become our savings. This is a not to exceed price, but we can go lower. And then you also have the contingency. So if you don't have to use contingency is there, that's $114,000, and that's there in case something comes up that you didn't see or anticipate. And generally is a number that's kind of real time. But our goal is to squeeze tight on that, and we think we've covered most of our bases, so that savings comes back to us, not to the contractor. So this price can be lower, it just can't be higher.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Here.
Doc, go ahead.
At the study session, you brought this up with the $6 million and the increase for $422,000. Do you foresee in the future any more increases?
Well, since this is the first time it's an actual guarantee, Rockford, as long as we don't, again, the two exclusions are, as long as one, we don't change the scope. We don't decide we want to make it bigger or we want something fancier than is in the specs that costs more. So that's on us. Or if the geotechnical, the things that, you do soil borings, you x-ray the ground, you do all kinds of crazy things, and you still don't know what you might run into. We're in that process right now. There isn't anything obvious. We should be out of the woods on that here in the next month and a half. So that one should go away, but it's still sitting there. But unless one of those two things were to occur, this is Rockford saying all other conditions, this is the maximum price. And they can give you that because they've actually bid all the subcontractors. They know what the actual pricing in the market is. It's taken the market guess out. We now know all the various sub-trades have been budgeted, and we know exactly what our price is for each construction activity. So they can give you that. The only thing they can't predict is so market's no longer an issue. We know what the number is. The only thing they can't predict is what's underground or whether the owner's going to want to ask for something in addition to.
So in other words, it's either a change order or they find something unusual underground or something that can raise the price.
Yeah, that would be it.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion?
I do want to say thank you to both Commissioner Waltz and Commissioner Bear. Their experience, both as an architect and as a project manager, was helpful. I had a chance to speak with them, and I do believe that there are some opportunities to, as we work through the project, to address some of the items that the architects have scoped out and potentially look at other choices that might be of better value. So we'll be doing that throughout the process. This is going to be a 12-month adventure. So we'll have plenty of opportunity to do that.
Thank you. Need a motion and support. Send this to the full board. All in favor indicate by saying aye. 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 Those opposed, same. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Jeff. Next up, we have another parks item. Blackstone Street campsite electrical system.
Yeah, this is the domino effect. You do one thing and it causes another issue. So the Keeley Park site improvements, the construction of the 510-car parking lot, and all that comes with it eliminates the south end of the track, the first and second turns of the old track, which is exactly where we have for decades placed our vendor camping, our food vendors. It's also where we've placed our 4-H superintendents who come from out of state and in some cases out of town. So it's been a camping area that's been electrified on a temporary basis each year. So we had to find a new location, and the Blackstone area that's been used for parking is the area. The back half of it has been identified. So this is the cost to take that open field and get the appropriate power necessary to accommodate the camping. So building out that infrastructure. The question that's obvious is then what do you do with that parking? Again, the domino effect. So we've acquired, as you know, the property inside the prison, which is a significant amount of acreage that will handle that parking. It isn't as convenient, but it will handle that parking. And there will be some smaller amount of parking on the front of the Blackstone. We're electrifying the back half primarily of that site.
The Blackstone parking lot is where the animal exhibitors were allowed to park their trucks without paying a daily parking fee.
Yeah.
People that have large animals, they're bringing hay, they're bringing a whole variety of things in every day. So they were allowed to use that space so they could have a short distance to carry their daily materials in.
Yeah.
If this parking lot is turned over to the carnival people for their housing, for their staff, what will be the new location where the exhibitors can park their trucks?
Yeah. Like I said, the back half is being electrified, so the front closest to Blackstone Street area would be reserved for that type of parking, which would then displace the actual paid parking, which is what is moving over to the prison. We're also doing some reorganization of the North Street lot, which is actually even closer. It's probably the site that gets is in as highest demand by the 4-H community, because obviously it's just right across the street from a lot of the large animal barns, and so we're trying to do some reorganization there to allow for more of the 4-H parking of the type you're talking about to create convenience. But yeah, like I said, the front half of the Blackstone parking would be used for the 4-H folks as a priority, and then the paid parking would be moved over to the, that's displaced at Blackstone would be what would be moved over to the prison area.
Okay. As a exhibitor, I mean, that would be much less convenient than what the previous situation has been.
You mean in moving to the prison? Yeah, but we're not moving the exhibitors, that's what I'm saying. The exhibitors would stay at the Blackstone area, and the paid parking would move to the prison.
Okay, the exhibitors used to take up the entire Blackstone parking area.
Well, they haven't, because we've had significant amount of paid parking in there for the 3 years I've been here. On Blackstone, North of North Avenue, all of that parking is 4-H.
Oh, you're thinking of North Street. You're not Blackstone. Blackstone's at the bottom of the hill, and it goes all the way up to Lansing Avenue. That's always been paid parking.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right, I'm thinking of the wrong road.
You're thinking of the completely wrong lot and everything.
But there are a few exhibitors of different sorts that end up in Blackstone. But yeah, most of the 4-H exhibitor parking is north of North Avenue. Yeah, and that's all not being touched.
Right, I was confused about which parking lot.
Yeah,
thank you.
No problem.
If there's no further questions, I need a motion of support for the electrical work.
Support.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Morning, Jeff. I think I kind of know the answer to this already. So I see that this is being paid for out of the capital budget of the fair.
Yes.
Right. So I guess my question would be, because this I don't recall this being talked about at fair at all that I can remember. But what my question is I think it's needed. But my concern is that we've kind of crossed out adding the built-in electrical for our food vendors in that food vendor area. So
yeah.
is that was going to be paid for within?
Yeah. So the two pieces. Yeah, this piece is in the general fund capital allocated for what in the budget is called fairgrounds. We're trying to get that changed to Keeley Park, but it's termed fairgrounds. So because the park board's now responsible for that went to park board rather than fair board. So there's a transition there that's a little confusing.
Gotcha, thank you.
And so that's coming out of those capital dollars from previous years that have rolled over. So that's being used here rather than the bond money and no millage money for this. There's a $250,000 allowance that you all approved. We didn't accept the $1.8 million alternate in the original low bid we got from Hoffman, and instead we negotiated a $250,000 allowance to allow us to do the basics, which include parking lot, security lighting, and the basic infrastructure we need to get the fair vending up and running. Similarly, what we've done in the past, only we'll be using pad mount transformers instead of pole transformers, but it's a similar system. So that's been approved and is in that 2.9, just short of $3 million that you approved for Hoffman. I do want to tell you all that we are still challenged with Hoffman's subcontractor, electrical contractor, so we're working through that, and I would anticipate that we will be here in May with a significant change order decreasing Hoffman's contract and with a proposal from a local electrical company to do the electrical work that we need done there. Can't guarantee it, but I'm working on. That's what I was working on this morning. But we've got to go, and J-Rank is not. We're just not getting there. So we need to do a change order. Sorry.
Just two quick questions. Was this the only bid you received, or did you receive others?
No, we ended up with two that were not so busy they couldn't. So there should be two in your packet. Cochrane is the other one.
Yeah. Okay,
so we had both Cochrane and Aladdin. We worked with Hearst. Thought they were going to come into the fold, but they waved us off. And I don't have the whole list, but I know we contacted at least two other contractors in the immediate region, and they also told us they were too busy. So we struggled a bit. This should have been here last month, but we struggled a bit to get participation just because this time of the year folks have already gotten themselves pretty booked for the year.
Sure. And then my last question, how long approximately is this going to take?
To build this out?
Yes.
If you approve this today, we have to have it in place by the time the fair gets here. We're anticipating that it'll be done by the end of June, but all fails, it has to be done before the fair starts, or we got serious issues.
Right. That's why I asked. I was just curious on that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nothing further.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? If not,
Bid we're taking is Aladdin, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
Sorry.
We have a motion support. All in favor of awarding the contract to Aladdin and sending that to the full board for confirmation? Vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Very much. Next up, we have finance. Welcome.
Good morning. So I'm here to report on February's 2019 financial statements. So it's 2/12 is our budget benchmark when we're looking at expenditures. And for year-to-date expenditure total is 15.7%, so we're under that benchmark, which is good. And our 3-year average is 16.9. So our revenue percent is 7.5% for year-to-date, and the 3-year revenue average is also 7.5%. So we're right on where we should be with our revenues and also for our expenditures. And when you were reviewing the financial statements, were there any questions that I can help answer?
Any questions, Cecilia? Okay, let me get back here.
Okay.
Okay, we are moving on to item 4I, park and various other funds, budget amendments.
Yeah. These are some budget amendments that Jeff requested that we prepare. They're pretty much reflecting the fact that general fund will not be helping supplement their operations or using their millage. And then there was also, so based on that, he needed some adjustments to, for wages and that type of stuff within his Fund 208. And then he was also moving around his projects and moving them into the correct funds, is basically what these budget amendments are reflecting.
Any discussion? If not, need a motion and support.
Okay. Oh no.
Were you able to get it unlocked, or you needed to vote? Okay. Okay, we have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Thank you.
Okay.
Move on to item 4J, our general fund budget amendment request.
Yeah, so these budget amendments are reflecting reductions of revenues for projections for basically 12th District Court, and we're also reflecting increase in our property tax revenues and also reduction of a local community stabilization tax. So we're just more getting our revenues in line. And then we're also, regarding the school liaison program, in between the sheriff, is moving our wages around for those budgets. So our budget is more accurate for our school liaison program.
Alrighty, thank you. Any questions or discussion? We have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Cecilia.
Thank you.
On to item 4K. This would be the MIDC plan.
So as you recall, this is an annual grant request that we have to submit to the state of Michigan. This year's plan is due April 30th. It is for fiscal year 2019-20. State of Michigan budget is on an October 1 to September 30 budget year. So this is for to begin this fall, October 1. The meeting last month was to approve implementation of our budget for right now. So not to be confused with what we're doing right now. This is our request for next year, for our future for next year. There are some changes we're transitioning in accordance with my conversations with the prosecutor, the judges, the sheriff's department, and myself. We've had several meetings over probably the past 6 or 8 months, And there is a request to move. Our initial plan was to maintain our contractual public defenders. We have contracts with, gosh, I think it's 15 or 20 attorneys between district court and circuit court. So we are looking to transition to a public defender's office where we would have staff, attorneys on site that are employed by the county through the grant. So there is a request for additional staff in this grant proposal for that reason. So we will gradually over the next 2 years probably reduce those contractual employees and increase the county employees through the grant. So there is a change in staffing for that reason. Any questions?
Discussion, questions? Dr. Tompkins.
One of the new mandates that isn't required yet, it looks like it's going to be required for October 1 of 2020. So we started planning for it in the transition. There's a minimum hourly wage that is going to be required. It's one of the standards 5 through 8. That hourly wage is $100, $110, or $120 an hour based on case type, $120 for capital, $100 for misdemeanors, and $110 for the other felonies that are not capital. So that makes it cost prohibitive to maintain a contractual attorney. If you're familiar with the time that goes into any particular case, it makes it cost prohibitive to maintain those contracts because of the minimum hourly wage that would be required through MIDC standards. Thank you.
Any further questions? Discussion? I have one question. So we now have the state of Michigan dictating wage and hours, price controls?
Those standards, yes, that's one of the proposed standards. 5 through 8 are not mandatory at this time, and that is one of the 5 through 8 that is not mandatory, but I'm told will be required come October 2020. So yes, it will be a mandate that I'm told that will be imposed upon us.
Are you aware of any other price controls Lansing wants to dictate?
Not at this time. As far as I'm aware, these will be the final 8 once they're all implemented. I'm not aware of any other ones coming down the pipe at this time. But I did put back into the request, I put back in a court clerk. They had previously told us to remove that. So I put that back in. They have told us in the past that the prosecutor's staff is not going to be approved, so I did not put that back in. But this is our initial submission. If you may recall, our previous submission for the current budget year, they rejected, so we had to make some changes. So this is my initial submission. They may come back and say you have to change this or you have to take that out, or so it's sometimes a back and forth a little bit, but this may not be the final product. Just full disclosure, this may not be the final product.
All right, I don't like the MIDC plan at all. I'll be voting against it. That's my comment. Any other comments? Discussion? Need a motion and support?
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed the same? Aye.
Nay.
Passes 3-2. Going to the full board. Next up, item 4L, Administrator Controller, proposed updates on policy 3350.
This policy is just to update a position title. So as always, we are continually assessing our policies, reviewing them for those that need updates, and so this one is just a position title. I'm still having difficulties getting into board docs, but yeah, so I believe it's just a position title that needed updating in this one.
Any discussion?
Oh, I can't see it. What is the position?
It looks like it's from
It's actually mine.
Oh.
deputy to assistant.
Right.
It's
From deputy to it. Yeah.
Okay, I read that. So it's just changing the name, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right.
We have a motion support?
Support.
And all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Moving on to item 4M. This was the new addition to our agenda that was taking time. Amy, would you like to talk to this?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So the Enterprise Group, I don't know where you want me to start. Which order? We had 3 items on the agenda: an EDC semi-annual report, a Brownfield semi-annual report, and then also a Brownfield plan consideration to establish a public hearing for April 16th and recommend approval of a Brownfield plan. So let me know where you would like me to start, because I don't think any of you have been able to review
We have only 2 items here. Notice of public, pardon me?
Yeah, I think
Got it.
there's,
Twice. Yeah, 13 and 14.
So there's M and
so perhaps, I think we usually send our semi-annual reports together for both the Brownfield plan and the EDC. So that may be one of them, and then the other one would be the approval of the Brownfield plan.
Approval.
Okay. Okay. Well, all right. If you'd like me to, I can give a brief report for the EDC and Brownfield Authority, since you don't have it to review. The EDC, since we last met with you, we had 1 loan paid off for $15,000, which was Lutz Cabinets. We continue to have money to loan out. I did meet with 1 lender presenting the program to them, and I also met with one of the Brownfield applicants that you've already approved Brownfield plan for. The program did not work for them because it does trigger Davis-Bacon, because it's federal funds, Davis-Bacon wages, and includes a long environmental review, and they opted not to pursue the program for that. The latest report shows that we leveraged $54 million with loans of $4.3 million. So that information doesn't change a lot. On the Brownfield Authority, you are very aware that we've been real busy with Brownfield plans, and we have another one coming to you that is on the next agenda item. But Jackson's Self-Storage Southwest is one of them. There's 4 buildings erected there. Now that's still under construction, but that was a Brownfield plan, and the tax increment is being used to repay the environmental work that was done at that site. Jackson County Fairgrounds, we did do work for that. Our Brownfield work is completed, but it is being considered along with the construction. Armory project, the Brownfield Authority paid for a very inclusive documentation of all of the environmental work that's ever been done on that site. And that is available if any of you are interested. I can tell you that our Dropbox link to the full report is 2,047 pages. So if you're having trouble with your board docs, it might take a while to download it. But we're happy to provide any reports at the Brownfield Authority. If you want to need additional information, please always let us know. The other Brownfield plan that was adopted was for 2400 East Michigan, which was the Dollar General. And Commissioner Mahoney, because these documents didn't get on here, I did want to make sure that you received the response. I sent it to Mike and Delane that I had communicated.
Yes, ma'am, I did. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And then the next one, and I didn't mention, the first Brownfield plan I mentioned created 1 new job and had an investment of $390,000. The second one anticipates 7 to 10 new jobs and $1.3 million investment. The third one that we'll be considering in the next agenda item going to you on April 16th will create 5 new jobs, retain 63, and be about $1.1 million of investment. So I can answer any questions if you have any on that general report, or we can, in the next item, get into a little bit more specifics on the upcoming Brownfield plan.
Okay, I have 2 items here, and one we need to announce and approve to send.
That's the next item on your agenda.
I can't get there. But did or didn't? No, didn't get there. Locked. Okay, next item up, 4N?
Yes.
4N, it's not showing on my screen, okay. First up, the Enterprise Group Brownfield Plan. We have a public notice and a resolution and the redevelopment plan.
Yes, thank you very much. So this is a brownfield plan. The site is actually in both Blackman Township and the city of Jackson. It's Kelcade/DEP, and DEP stands for Diversified Engineering and Products, out on 1801 Wildwood. They're doing some roof repair to the building, and they have existing employees in those buildings, and the owner is being very proactive to install a vapor intrusion system that will protect the health of their workers and residents in that area. And we already have approval from Blackman Township via a consent resolution, and also the City of Jackson in a consent resolution that they both support the brownfield plan. And today we're requesting that you establish that public hearing for April 16th and send a recommendation for approval to the full board.
Okay, that's our first order of business. We have a notice of public hearing. That would be at the full board meeting next week. Need motion support to send that to the full board.
So moved.
Have a motion support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed the same. Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Next up, we move to item 5, the claims. We don't have them going around today. Other minutes, you see none. May reporting schedule is there. I don't know if I can get to it. Clerk, Parks, Blackman DDA, and Leone Township DDA. Return to public comment. Any public comment? No public comment. Committee member comment. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, board.